Next on Currents News, mourning the sudden passing of Caroline Latham, the beloved principal of St. Joseph High School. We'll have the story of a special person many students considered a second mom. President Trump's ex-lawyer Michael Cohen goes public with allegations against his former client.
A Brooklyn bishop is leading the humanitarian effort to help those affected by the crisis in Venezuela. I'm Tim Harfman, and that story is coming up.
Plus, why convicted Cardinal George Pell has been taken away to jail. The news starts right now.
She was such a happy person, and she would always be smiling.
She was Caroline Latham, the beloved principal of St. Joseph High School. She has returned to the Lord. Good evening, everyone. I'm Liz Faublas. The passing of Caroline Latham was unexpected. She was a leader and champion of everything good that a Catholic education brings to students. Now the school community is mourning. Currents News' Emily Drewby is standing by at St. Boniface Church in downtown Brooklyn. Emily.
Liz, students, staff, and friends just completely heartbroken over this sudden loss. Earlier, they gathered here at St. Boniface to lean on each other in support during this trying time. A solemn tone filled the air at St. Boniface as people mourned the sudden loss of Caroline Latham, the first lay principal at St. Joseph High School.
I celebrate the change she brought to the school in the matter of a short time.
Currents News frequently spoke to and worked with Principal Latham. Students remembered her kindness and the joy she brought to every room she entered, like Maria Constable, who said she was the kind of person who inspired people to be their best.
She was a really good person, and she wouldn't get mad at you for the small things. She would give you second chances. She would be there to talk to you, and she's an angel. I aspire to be as happy as her.
During the service, they offered up little hearts, each one a different memory of Principal Latham, a way in which she affected their life. 11th grade student Marilyn Pauta recalled a time Principal Latham helped her attend a program at Boston University.
It was $600 to get in, and in my family, $600 is a lot for one person. So Ms. Latham offered to pay the money from her pocket for me to attend that program, and it was a moment of shock. I was like, wow. This woman, she believes in me and made me believe in myself. So because of her, I have these new ambitions.
Marilyn graduates next year and wants to study nursing in college. The school's senior religion teacher, Timothy Sennett, recalls coming back from a 3-day retreat to a special gift from Principal Latham.
I noticed an envelope with a Panera Bread gift card and a thank you note, just thanking me for my role in helping to organize the retreat. And she did little things like that fairly often, not just to me, but to everybody.
Sennett says Caroline Latham was very good at reminding people that they are valued members of the community. Those are just 3 of many stories that people shared with me. She had such a big impact on the lives of everyone she met. Liz, I know you knew her pretty well. What's your best memory?
Oh, Emily, I could go on and on. She was strength personified, you know. When she spoke, you listened, and she always spoke with power and purpose, the greatest of which was the advancement of her girls. I remember she invited me to deliver the commencement address, and I was so nervous because I just knew I had to get this right. It was her girls. And she said, you know, you want for them what I want. You love them like I do. And this part nearly broke me. She said, and they love you. You will be fine, and I wouldn't trust you with my girls if I did not believe that. And that is probably the greatest memory I have of her. But, you know, we talk so often about how important it is for this generation of young women to have a voice. And we talk about how critical it was for her, for me, for anybody that was afforded the privilege, and it was a privilege to speak to teach, to minister to her girls, to have one goal in mind, and that was to empower them to be better, to know better, to do better, because they were the best. And she would always tell them that, you know, and it didn't matter who she talked to. She made you feel valued and smart and confident, and she wouldn't let you fail. If you worked hard and you wanted it and you stumbled, she would pick you up and carry you to the finish line because she believed in her soul. every young woman was built for greatness. This world is a better place for having her in it, and her spirit's going to live on. And I for one, am going to do my best to carry on her legacy because, like she said to me so many months ago, you love the girls and they love you. Caroline Latham appeared in several current news stories every time she championed the education and empowerment of women.
I believe very strongly in empowering young women. We've been educating women here at St. Joseph High School for 113 years and giving them the opportunity to have access to technology. And we're really trying to impress upon them the message of the fact that they can be leaders in their fields, yet while fulfilling the mission of the school, which is to unite all in God's love.
The entire remembrance of Caroline Latham is posted on the Currents News Facebook page. Caroline Latham's family will receive friends as they gather to say their final goodbyes at the Thomas A. Glenn and Son Funeral Home at 20 Lincoln Avenue in Rockville Center today from 7 to 9 p.m. and tomorrow from 2 to 4 p.m. and again from 7 to 9 p.m. A mass of Christian burial will be celebrated at St. Agnes Cathedral on Friday at 10 a.m. President Trump's ex-lawyer Michael Cohen leveled a bunch of accusations against his former client on Capitol Hill today. Omar Jimenez reports on the heated hearing.
I am not protecting Mr. Trump anymore.
President Trump's former lawyer, Michael Cohen, blasting his former boss.
Since taking office, he has become the worst version of himself. He is a racist, he is a con man, and he is a cheat.
Cohen presenting a copy of a $35,000 check as evidence Trump directed hush money payments to adult film star Stormy Daniels.
He asked me to pay off an adult film star with whom he had an affair and to lie about it to his wife, which I did.
Cohen says then candidate Trump also knew WikiLeaks would release emails damaging to Hillary Clinton's 2016 campaign.
Mr. Trump knew from Roger Stone in advance about the WikiLeaks drop of emails.
And Cohen claims Trump lied during the presidential campaign about his intentions to develop a Trump Tower in Russia.
He lied about it because he never expected to win.
Republicans say, as they have throughout the hearing, that Cohen isn't credible. The now disbarred lawyer pleaded guilty to tax crimes, campaign finance violations, and lying to Congress.
The first announced witness for the 116th Congress is a guy who is going to prison in 2 months for lying to Congress.
Cohen will go to prison in May for 3 years, but as today's testimony proves,
I have fixed.
He's not going quietly.
But I am no longer your fixer, Mr. Trump.
In Washington, Omar Jimenez, Currents News.
The new summit between Donald Trump and Kim Jong-un is now underway. The two world leaders met for dinner in Hanoi tonight, where Mr. Trump called the relationship he has formed with the North Korean leader the greatest achievement of his diplomatic efforts.
But I thought the first summit was a great success, and I think this one hopefully will be equal or greater than the first. And we made a lot of progress, and I think the biggest progress was our relationship is really a good one. I think that your country has tremendous economic potential, unbelievable, unlimited. And I think that you will have a tremendous future with your country, a great leader. And I look forward to watching it happen and helping it to happen. And we will help it to happen.
Trump and Kim will reconvene on Thursday for more talks. North Korea's arsenal of nuclear weapons is the key issue on the summit agenda. Cardinal George Pell is in jail at this hour after his bail was revoked today by an Australian court. The clergyman was taken away in a van to Melbourne's assessment prison. His conviction on child sex abuse charges was unsealed yesterday. He will be jailed until his sentencing on March 13th. He faces a maximum of 50 years in prison. Pell insists he is innocent and intends to appeal the verdict. The Vatican is launching a church investigation of the cleric now that his criminal conviction is official. Spokesman Alessandro Ghisotti, in making the announcement, said the case will follow the procedures found in canon law. This is not the first church investigation of Pell. In 2002, he faced allegations of abusing a 12-year-old boy. An independent church review board concluded there was insufficient evidence of a crime. This morning, Pope Francis told pilgrims at the Vatican the evil's days are numbered. He said the forces of darkness are no match for the expanding holiness of God.
Il male non è eterno, Il male ha I giorni contati.
Francis said he's certain of one thing: evil is afraid because it is limited, not eternal, and prayer can drive it away. The Venezuelan crisis is more tense tonight. Self-proclaimed President Juan Guaido is vowing to return home despite death threats and warnings from the Maduro regime. Guaido said he will be the president.
Yes, we are going to return to Venezuela this week. We have had a very interesting international agenda this week, meeting with the humanitarian community in Cúcuta. They were able to see the crisis that for us is evident, but that the regime denies.
Guaido met with Vice President Mike Pence in Colombia on Monday. The United States backs him as president. Venezuela's bishops are demanding the regime's military forces open the country's borders and permit emergency supplies to reach the people. As thousands of Venezuelans are struggling without basic goods such as food and medical supplies, Catholic Relief Services is stepping in to help fill the void. Currents News' Tim Harfman talks about that with the Brooklyn-based bishop who leads the organization.
The people of Venezuela are desperate. They're so hungry they're eating out of the garbage because relief supplies have been destroyed. Venezuelan soldiers locking arms to shut off humanitarian aid from reaching the country's citizens. But Catholic Relief Services, the international Catholic aid agency, is doing its best to help. Brooklyn Bishop Gregory Mansour is the chairman.
Politics come and go. Unfortunately, sometimes they go worse than ever, but the church and the humanitarian efforts go on. And we just find a way to serve, especially the needy and the poor, in any way we can.
CRS is working with Caritas, another international aid organization, to provide basic goods to the Latin American country. Over 3.5 million Venezuelans have fled the nation to receive emergency materials in neighboring countries.
In the last couple weeks, we know that for sure some of the aid has gotten in, or people have come over the border to receive it.
Venezuelan bishops are calling on the government to end the crisis and listen to the people pleading for help. Bishop Mansour supports his brother bishops.
The ones I've known, they're men of integrity, and I think when they cry out, we should listen.
The men of the church hopes the United States is able to bring about a peaceful solution in Venezuela.
I just hope and pray that the American government and whatever becomes of the Venezuelan government will find some meeting of the mind for the good of people.
Bishop Mansour promises Catholic Relief Services will continue to provide aid for Venezuela for as long as it takes. Tim Harfman, Currents News.
Sharp debate at the U.S. Supreme Court today over the Cross of Christ. A 40-foot cross stands on public land in Maryland, and the 9 justices are deciding if that should be allowed. The cross was put up as a World War I memorial in 1925. Today's oral arguments revealed a stark divide among the justices over which monuments with religious symbolism should be permitted to stand on public ground. A ruling is expected in the summer. There's a lot more news headed your way. History is being made at the polling booth. We'll tell you about the election that's going to set a record, and it involves 2 women. I talked to an expert about how he believes the Child Victims Act is a big help for survivors, and the Methodists are keeping a ban in place that will keep some people out of their churches. New York City has a new public advocate. Brooklyn-born Democrat Jumaane Williams won the special election on Tuesday night, beating out 16 other candidates, including Queens City Councilman Eric Ulrich, who finished second. Williams is filling out the term of Letitia James, who was elected state attorney general in November. He'll run again for a 4-year term. The city of Chicago will soon make history by electing its first African-American female mayor. Lori Lightfoot and Toni Preckwinkle are set to face each other in a runoff election this April. Lightfoot, a former assistant U.S. Attorney General, is pushing to reform the city's police department, while Preckwinkle focuses on a minimum wage increase and improving education. The winner will succeed current Mayor Rahm Emanuel. The passing of the Child Victims Act raises a lot of legal questions, and here to help us answer them is Christopher Seager, a widely respected attorney who represents abuse victims in the state of New York. Chris, thank you so much for being with us. I know this is a very tough topic to try to unravel. So, the Child Victims Act. First off, it changes the statute of the limitations. That's the big part of it, correct? How does this help survivors? Break that down for us.
This is a game changer for survivors because many of them have had to have sort of suffered quietly in the back. This gives them an opportunity now to finally seek justice, to smoke out their abusers, and to hopefully get justice at the end of the day from the legal system. This gives them additional time and access to the courts. They didn't have that before this.
I think when people think about abuse, especially since we have been hearing so much about it in the last year, in the last several years, they tend to think, what happens to the older cases? Since memories fade, the accused could be dead, unable to defend themselves. What happens? What's the recourse there?
Well, so I'll tell you one concern I have from a litigation perspective is what happened with the documents and the records. You know, this recent conference that the Pope just held raised some suspicions on my end that documents may have disappeared inappropriately. So that raises a concern. As far as the memories, I can tell you after speaking to 60 survivors I represent here in New York, their memories haven't faded.
It stays with them.
Oh, their memories are clear.
Some survivors in New York are calling for the state's bishops to meet and have their own sex abuse summit. Do you think that's a good idea?
Oh, it's a great idea.
Why?
Nothing came out of the conference with the Vatican. Nothing concrete came out of it. So we think it's important to focus on what's going on in New York. Some of our clients are what motivated the request for that conference. So.
Talk to us about your clients. You spoke with them, obviously, on a very personal level.
Yeah, it's a difficult thing. It's a difficult subject for all of them to talk about, so it's not easy in the beginning getting a conversation going. Once you have earned their trust and you find out what happened, this has devastated many of their lives. It's stayed with them. It's confused them about who they are, how it happened, why it happened. You know, these are still very religious people in some cases. They were abused by people they trusted most. So it's a difficult conversation, but it really has to happen. And the passage of this act is going to get all that going. And I believe ultimately that a lot of good will come. Not only access to the courts, but some therapy that's really needed.
I know you're not able to talk about any ongoing cases, obviously, but as an attorney, having this bill finally passed, what's the next step for some of these victims?
There are a lot of options. I mean, some are not anxious about putting their name on a complaint and filing in court. And there are different programs for them. Some want to go to court. They want their voice to be heard. They want their abuser called out, and they want to affect change so this never happens again to other little boys and girls. This happened, they may be adults now, they were little boys and girls when this happened. Any of us would want to protect a little boy and girl, and they want to protect them as well.
Now this took 10 years. It was a long time coming. The ultimate effect of the Child Victims Act, if you can sum that up in 30 seconds, and I'm sorry to put you on the spot for it, but what would be the most important outcome right now for this bill?
The most important outcome is to get all of those people that have been sitting in the dark, sitting in the back, keeping this a secret to themselves, to come forward. Whether it's through a legal process or just to seek therapy, it's to get people talking about this and get these survivors healed. They and their family, one of the reasons I say to them, look, I can get money for them. I can go to court. And money doesn't make you whole, but it can start the healing for your family. It can start that process.
Such a difficult process to talk about, but you said it best. The most important people are the survivors and their healing. Thank you, Christopher.
Thank you.
I really appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Nearly 900 delegates from the United Methodist Church have decided to continue the church's ban of LGBTQ clergy members and same-sex marriage, leading many to question if a breakup is imminent.
We stand against the spirit of hatred judgment, and discrimination, which creates division instead of unity.
What we want more than anything is just the freedom to do ministry the way that we see fit.
The Methodist Church came to the conclusion after meeting for 5 days. Still to come on Currents News, Editor-in-Chief of the Tablet, Jorge Dominguez, will be here to tell us more about what we can expect in this week's edition of the paper, and the story of a World War II veteran with one wish for his birthday this year. We'll be right back. The historic Vatican Summit on Sexual Abuse is an event we will be discussing for a long time, and the Tablet newspaper has been covering the summit from a Catholic point of view. Joining me now is Editor-in-Chief Jorge Dominguez.
Thank you, Liz.
Jorge, always nice to have you here, my friend. One thing that came up during the summit was the Holy Father, and he was adamant about this, that the sex abuse crisis is a global problem. Now, as you report in your column, since the scandals broke in 2002, many in the church had the idea that this was just an America problem, something that only happened here in America. Why does that sort of thinking even exist?
Because in other countries, they have a hard time accepting that they have the problem too. But here in America, it was the same. At the beginning, people thought it was a Catholic problem. And they didn't think that Hollywood had the same problem. Other Christian denominations, the world of sports. So every human group have the problem is so revolting that every human group have a hard time accepting that they have the problem too.
Now, what did the bishops have to say about how the American church handled the summit?
Well, it was very interesting because during the summit, when we have those terrible news about the Pennsylvania report and everything, the news was terrible. But when the people really read the report, they realized that the Dallas Charter, it was the protocols that the American church put in place in 2002 to stop this kind of horrible things to happen, is really working, and the cases have gone down a lot. So during this, at the beginning, people were, people in other countries didn't believe that the American solution was really working. After this summer, that the people realized that it was working, and that was reflected in the summit in the Vatican. People were accepting that.
I got to get this in before I let you go, Jorge. You say in your column this week that there could be a Dallas Charter for the rest of the Universal Church. Really quickly, what would that mean?
At the end of the summit, in the final the speech to the summit, the Pope said that we need all the bishops united following certain rules, not suggestions, rules. That means like a Dallas chart for the whole world.
All right, Jorge, thank you so much. Very, very interesting stuff. This article will appear first in the printed version of the tablet, which is in churches across the diocese right now, or in your mailbox with a subscription. Your support for the tablet is needed to ensure that Catholic journalism will thrive well into the future. If you subscribe to the tablet, you will save up to 55%. Go to the website, thetablet.org/home55, or call 1-877-883-8356. A World War II veteran from Texas is making one wish for his 100th birthday next month: 100 birthday cards. Joe Cuba told the staff at his senior living facility that he'd like a card for every year he's been alive, making his request public by sharing a picture on social media. Joe has already gotten 10,000 birthday cards and counting from all over the world.
I thank every one of them. They did give, and that's what counts.
Joe and his family are celebrating his milestone birthday with a trip to Washington, D.C., where he will get to visit the World War II Memorial for the first time. I think I may go ahead and send him a card as well. That is Currents News. I'm Liz Faublas. Thank you so much for joining us, because we are putting your faith in the news. Hope to see you again next time.